Hello and welcome to our show, Mike and I, and today's show apparently is going to be a little bit like an old-fashioned Japanese movie where our mouths are moving and sound is coming out and they're not in sync with each other. I don't know why, Mike.
Yeah, it's a bandwidth thing. I've noticed I've had the issue, all afternoon here, so which is not unusual for me. For Dale, it's a little bit more unusual here. So
it's a vast conspiracy.
Yes.
No, it's not. It's just the vagaries of the internet.
The vagrants on the internet. Yes.
That's it. That's us. Vagrants on the internet. That's the new title of our show.
Yes, vagrants on the internet. That's good.
Yeah. Well, okay. So sorry, everybody, for the periodic blanking of the screen and the guys who look like they're highly edited. We're not highly edited. We're just talking as usual, and we don't edit anything that we say, do we, Mike?
Oh, never.
So I decided before this morning's first meeting, the weekly business session of the county commissioners, to put this thing over my shoulder that says the future, because the most important thing after this vote last night is to think about what's coming up in the future. Little did I know that the future would come roaring down on us immediately at both major meetings today, that is of the Board of County Commissioners and of the City Council. You might anticipate that there'd be some price to pay at the City Council meeting. Well, brother, there was.
Oh, that would be very interesting. So I would imagine that a number of citizens came up and said, "See, I told you."
Actually, it was 4 citizens who came up and said, "See, I told you," but it was Darren Fowler, the Fowler Sales Tax. It was Darren Fowler who stole the show. And we're going to tell you about that just a second. But first, before we do that, this break for station identification. No, we don't have any commercials. This is a still from last night's show.
Yeah.
And that's Rob Pell sitting across from me. And it's a Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilcher and her amazing beeping cell phone all night.
Yes.
And there was a Sandy Casanelli and some goon back here in the corner on the phone to his wife. And
no, actually, I was on the phone to Lily Morgan. That's who I was on the phone
okay.
with.
All right. Well, okay. Yeah, I won't tell her, Jan. Okay, so as of at this exact moment, piece of your head around here, Dale. I'm frozen in fear. That's okay. You'll just, oh, there I am. We normally will get at the end of one day about between 70 and 100 views. And then when we put up a video that's associated with it, we get a similar number. So we'll be anywhere between about 150 and 200 views every single day for what we do, which is pretty good in this area considering there's X number of voters, people who actually vote, not registered, and only so many people are interested in a daily basis, like you folks watching the show, and what's happening in county government. And most people are happy with KJO or even the Daily Courier finding out every once in a while some selected news that they decide to share with you. So getting 100 views in an evening is kind of a big deal. Okay, and over a period of time, we'll get 300. Those are our normal numbers. About 300 is where it settles. Last night, as a result of one evening, it's not been 24 hours yet, we have, for last night's show, 2,776 views.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I noticed that also, in addition, a number of our previous shows are up in their views too. Now, to put this into a little contrast on this, our May 19th show, which we covered the election results on May 19th for the levy, that got, and we thought it was boffo huge at the time, that got 450 views. This has, and that's what it is now, even after 5 months. So now this overnight is just amazing.
Well, So what does this mean? What does this mean? We didn't have over 2,000 people watching it live. Okay, well, the numbers from YouTube are really strange. If you go at any one point, sometimes they go backwards. You'll lose 20 views. What? How is that possible? It's not possible. Okay, so what do you think? Mike and I were talking about this a little earlier. We're going to talk about it now live in front of you, and we look jerky, and that's just the video now. I hope that's the case. Tell me, Mike, what do you think is going on with so many people watching this? And remembering now, this is just a Grants Pass matter as far as the vote goes.
I think a lot of
all these.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the county, wanted to know about this. They want to know: do I have to drive past Grants Pass now? Am I going to be building a mom and pop store in my area so that people can take advantage of not having to pay a sales tax? There was a lot of people in the county that were interested in this. And listen, the city clearly, the city hated this idea. I mean, I think that's pretty clear from the turnout.
The city voters did. Yes. Yes, they did.
Right. Yes. But that is the city, if you're asking me. But it's very clear that people now understand, if they want the news on this and they want it as quick as possible, and they want some more news and interviews and things like that are connected to it, there's only one place they can come to, and that's us.
That's true. It really is the only place where you can go for any kind of analysis. Now, it might be whacked out analysis, as some people think, but it is analysis. And it does include the whacked out things that newsmakers say in their own words without any filtering by the Daily Courier or just completely dropping out and no content from Cajo. This number is equal to the number of people watching the 11 o'clock news live at any of the television stations in the area.
I suspect that's true.
Yeah. And that's pretty amazing numbers. And we didn't do a lot of, we talked about the fact that we'd be on once again, but we weren't, promoting the heck out of it. People came here just like they did with the UCC shooting. We didn't know we were going to do a story about the UCC shooting, but people came to us because they knew that we'd be covering that. How did they come to the conclusion we'd be covering that, Mike?
Well, because, we've been covering everything that's really in the news for the past year, just about. And so they've gotten used to that. They've gotten used to expecting that from us. And so we're happy to oblige. In this case, listen, we just share a passion that the rest of these people who viewed this video share on this particular topic. They did not want this sales tax. We didn't want the sales tax. And, had we wanted the sales tax, maybe we would have put on some kind of rah-rah show. And, and in that particular case last night, we wouldn't have gotten any views, or barely any anyway.
Well, we wouldn't have had any participants, because how many people are really rah-rah with this unless you go to a city council meeting?
Well, I noticed that the likes and dislikes on that video, they're not even proportionate to how the vote came out. It's like 12-2. Some people came in there and they want to see what that Dale Matthews has to say.
I didn't notice any. Well, these are the same people. This is just so strange to me. I know I shouldn't concentrate on this, but it's just so strange to me that there are people who don't like the guy that said, "I hate that show. I never watch it." There's a lapse in logic there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen it and I hate it. Okay. That's how we can be adjudged about who we're talking with. Okay. Ooh, that's not good English. With whom we're speaking. That's too stilted. You get my point. That's a lot of people. And the last time we got those kind of numbers, it came from all over the nation when some people were interested across the country in what was happening with the Oath Keepers and the Sugar Pine Mine.
Right. This is local.
This is all Grants Pass local.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's an amazing thing. It's the equivalent of viral around here. No question.
That would be viral here locally. That's our local version of viral. Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly right. So we wanted to share a little bit of that with you because mostly TV stations, they're not going to talk to you about their viewers and stuff. But, we try to analyze media as well, including ourselves. So, Mike, tell me a little bit about your perception of, honestly now, reviewing the media and you're reviewing ourselves. How do you think last night's it's not a broadcast, it's a webcast. How did last night's television show go? In your opinion, don't.
Oh, yeah. Here, yeah. You don't need to give that long of an intro to it. I can tell you right now, it sucked. It
Oh, come
sucked.
on.
No, it sucked royally from my perspective. There was a technical aspect that I was trying to pull off last night that never happened, and so we had to resort to the old way, and it wasn't nearly as good as it could have been. I loved the interviews. I loved the people that were on the show, the energy that was in the room there, and the way that we were able to capture that a little bit more. The last broadcast that we did from there, basically we're sitting in a corner and people were coming up and joining us for the broadcast, but no one else around could even hear what we were talking about because we were all headsetted up and we're on mics and we're talking to one another. But oh, look, so and so's on the show. I don't know what's going on there, so whatever. This time I had
It was a very popular show anyway. And Mike rearranged stuff this time so people in the room could hear and see what we were doing.
Right, and that had a few more of them interested in what was going on. I thought it was great. However, from my technical viewpoint, it was a complete failure. And there was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to do differently that I was not able to do. And next time I'll be ready for that because I'm going to drill and perfect the system here. So anyway,
well,
that's
whatever it was that sorry everybody about the delay. You're just this happens every once in a while. It's not our fault. We're doing what we can to bring you this live free show. Yeah. But one of the things that I could say is that whatever you did last night, Mike, it sure got a lot of views. And here's an interesting thing for me is we had Art Harvey passing by us and not telling us what the vote was right at the very beginning. Okay. Yeah. But people didn't tune in just to see the results. In fact, most of the people came in after the live show and did a replay of it. Okay. I think we're seeing the live show. I don't know why, but get your finger out of your eye, Dale. Okay. I got stuck there for a moment. And the stats show, our analysis, our digital analysis shows people were watching almost and sometimes the complete show. Really? That means that they're not just interested in the results, or maybe they knew what the results were. They wanted to see the analysis of it. What does it mean? What's next? And that started already. So
yes,
Mike played.
Our flux capacitors are working. That's the one thing that is working here.
Well, Mike played last night a little video insert. We won't be having any tonight for a couple of reasons. The main reason is it's going to start and stop just like we're doing, and we don't want to do that with an inserted video, probably tomorrow or the next day.
Well, you can hear the audio, and to be honest, let me just tell you, the one insert that we have is a screen capture of today's weekly business session, and I couldn't get it to stream perfectly anyway, but the audio is quite clear. So
okay, all right,
take your pick.
So now that goes into the future, because what's going to happen next? There are two scenarios in general. One of them is that the people who we're up against, I'd say that's fair to put it that way, they could say, well, this is really embarrassing. We've learned a lesson. Please. How long have you been watching this show? They're not going to learn any lessons. Okay. Or they could get real belligerent about it. Guess which one they decided to do immediately.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. For crying out loud. This is typical of these people. This is why you have to get rid of them. I'm assuming belligerence was the choice.
Belligerence was the choice attitude. It's amazing to me. Apparently, we are having some kind of effect on you and others because we hear our words echoed by the commissioners, the little back room, by people who get up. That imperial attitude of yours, we're hearing it everywhere we go now. Even, as I said, even the commissioners are repeating the words that we've said. That's a little strange, and that we're having some kind of effect. Your show is, you've asked us to watch them, and we're watching them. You've asked us to follow the money, and we're following the money, and they are so angry. What happened last week is I got up and I made an announcement of this research that Sandy Casanelli had done and I had done, and we put it into the state once again. And this time, the state, for reasons that are just baffling, I think because of this thing with the governor, that the OGEC, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, is now under some pressure to actually do something and not keep saying, well, we got nothing to do. And so they looked both at Gold Hill, didn't know that, did you? And also at Josephine County. They found that the Gold Hill city councilors, and I was there last night, I'm going to tell you about that either tonight or tomorrow night, and they found that they hadn't done anything, which they always say about the commissioners. And then they looked at the commissioners, our commissioners, and they said, yes, they have done something wrong. Really? Boy, what a surprise. How many times do you keep putting in the objections? And it was equal or less than we caught them on last time. But this time the OGE says, yeah, they're breaking the law. Well, the commissioners don't like that, and they're releasing press releases. No, we're not. No, we never have. Oh, these people don't know what they're talking about. Tell it to the Marines, buddy. Go tell it to the OGEC. So today, as promised at the weekly business session, I was going to get up and talk about next steps. What's the future? What do we do? And I had said last time, this is what the state found, and therefore, we're simply going to look to the future, and we're not going to be thinking of the problems that we have here in Josephine County as the end. We need to look to the future, and that simply doesn't include commissioners who've been caught doing something wrong. This time the state cut them too. Here is the reaction. Listen carefully, because there were people in the room who said, what did they say? That's baffling to me. They were there in the room. So here's what Keith Hick had to say.
Number 4 is the request comments from citizens. We begin on this side over here, and I have something to say first, Mr. Matthews. You have this public comments that you made, and last week you arrived at the conclusion that we are all guilty, and the end result is that we're going to have to move forward without you.
That's a brief cutout.
We have to consider you as part of the past. We're just going to come up with solutions on our own. And this is me turning my back on the past, and you've walked out. And in that you know and declare that I have been found guilty of ethical violations, that you are now moving forward without the Board of County Commissioners, that you are now part of the past in which you have turned your back. I see no point in recognizing you for 3 minutes to address as you consider us historic relics of insignificance. So I will not be recognizing you. Anybody else on this side?
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, there you go.
So the person who brought you the news has now been banned from speaking at county commissioners meetings. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely clear on this situation. Whether, I mean, he didn't mention the word ban. He didn't say I'm never recognizing you again. He just said, I'm not recognizing you. So now that may well be his intention.
Well, we won't find out for 2 weeks, shall we? Because it won't do any good to come next Wednesday and protest this or any other thing, because the county commissioners won't be meeting on Veterans Day. Thank you very much. Glad to hear that. But in the overall scheme of things, does it make any difference whether I'm banned for life or banned because I said something that I didn't say anything scatological. I wasn't running around the room yelling woot woot. I didn't call anybody names, but Keith Heck has. In fact, all three of them have.
Right. Now, to be fair, he doesn't have the power to ban you for life. Come January, there's going to be a new chair, and
Yeah.
there can those person is going to make their own rules. Now, it's interesting how much changes in a year, because last year, of course, at the first of the year, there was the controversy, the scandal with Simon Hare, and he withdrew from consideration for the chair because of his ethical issue there. And so I wonder what he's going to do this year, and what he would do as each time that a new chair gets in there. It seems like they have this, I'm going to come in there and rule with an iron fist, and they have some new set of rules, and they're going to crack down and whatever, and so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Yeah, this is kind of par for Keith. It's not the first time he's told Dale, I'm not going to recognize you or sit down when he's in the middle of something. So this is par for Keith Heck. And Keith Heck is apparently filed to run, for re-election this next year. So bear in mind this guy's continuing behavior.
Now, okay, so I want to mention something to you. We don't do a lot of this kind of thing, but go get a pen and a piece of paper. I'm going to have you write something down. I think that you'll find it valuable no matter what side of the fence you're on. Got your pen and piece of paper, you should be keeping it near your computer. And once you write the following phone number down, ready?
Hey, some people are watching us on a big screen TV, I'll have you know.
Yes. Okay. So put up an email address where you can email us something. So you can email it to us and we'll pass it on to the county commissioners, or you can call the following phone number. Now, you're not going to be able to come by next week and say anything at the weekly business session. We're not urging you to get up out of your job or off of your sofa or something and come to a weekly business session. Leave that up, will you please, Mike? And so here's the phone number, 541-474 5221. And when it says, what would you like to do? Report something or talk to a commissioner? Hit number 2, okay? Leave Keith Heck a message. Now, you can leave him a message or send one to us at badcounty.cpros.com, and you can say, Keith Heck, I think you're just so brave for telling a journalist that because he reported this, that he's going to be banned from speaking. That is the bravest thing I can imagine a politician doing, is telling someone who revealed the case of what the state has to say. That's a way to T. Brown would certainly Bill Meyer and KMED asked her, well, why would you say that? She says, because what Dale Matthews says is, sorry, it's all about me, is evil. He said, evil? Yeah, evil. Okay, so if you agree that pointing out that the commissioners were discovered by the OGEC because of the complaints that we put in about them to be guilty, then you just send Keith a letter saying, I agree with you, that's evil, please don't let people speak. That don't worry about whether they're calling you names like you do, Keith, and don't worry about whether or not they're running around the room or they're yelling out expletives. Just please ban anyone that you disagree with, Keith Heck, okay? Or you could send him a message through us. We'll see that he gets it. His address is really complex. Or you could give or give him a telephone call and say, you know, Keith, you're full of beans, bud, and you shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. Look. Here's the thing that happened with the unusual thing that happened with this Grants Pass election. Grants Pass voters always vote for taxes. They can be counted on always, as the city council said, they always do. You decided this time only the voters of Grants Pass. It doesn't matter so much. And this vote, what the county voters said, it was the Grants Pass voters. They turned it down by almost 80%. Which is Cheryl Walker junk ordinance numbers.
Yeah, no, it's close enough.
It's so amazing that that's what they did. Now, the question I asked Rob Pell last night, what are you going to do with all this energy? Are you going to let it dissipate? Is it just going to simmer down? Or are you going to turn this to making changes in the city council, maybe electing a new mayor, maybe doing other things? What are you going to do with that energy? He didn't feel like answering last night. I like Rob Pell, but he didn't feel like answering. So what are you going to do? You're our viewers. And if you think this is just ducky, then don't say anything. It's weird for me because it's about me too. But Mike and I are on the tip of the spear. We're the ones that are telling people on cable TV, those 12 and a half viewers on cable, what's going on, right? And then we videotape it, we show it to you, and then we get all these numbers. If you care about what the county is doing, I would suggest, similarly to what you do in watching the show and hitting like and etc., or you hate the show and never watch it. That's okay too. You're not watching it now, right? Then call Keith Hick, 474-5221, or send us an email and tell us, and we'll pass it on to them, what you think about this latest ruling. This is the future. Now that they've been caught and they can't get out of it, the easiest way, I think, would be to change their behavior, but they're not going to do that, are they? Instead, they're going to try to make sure that you can't hear what's happening. Mike?
Yep. So what happened at the city council when you went in there? And I'm dying to hear this.
Okay, so this is great. So I've got it on tape, and we'll play it back. I mean, it's so close to this meeting; it's impossible to do the processing and everything to give you something that looks good. So every other week, the Grants Pass City Council meets, and Darren Fowler, the mayor, the Fowler Sales Tax. I'm going to call it that. It's really the Roy Lindsay Sales Tax, but Fowler's up for re-election, so I'm going to call it the Fowler Sales Tax. And he was just as strongly behind it, right behind Roy Lindsay. And every other week, he says, now I just want to make sure everybody understands, we have a rule here at the city council that when you ask us a question, they made up the rule. Get your finger out of your idea. Okay, thank you. And they're allowed to speak. They're not allowed to speak. And council meeting for the last 2 months, when I get up to speak, Darren Fowler decides to engage me in dialogue, which is against the rules, and make some snide comments every time. I don't even know if he knows that he's doing it, but he does know he doesn't like me. He doesn't like our coverage. He doesn't like the fact that Mike caught him saying that if this thing, what did he say to you, Mike? You mentioned it last night.
Yeah, it was just we were doing street interviews, and we asked him about the sales tax, and he was giving his philosophy on the whole thing and how it was going to bring $3 million more to the city, and they were going to do this and that and the other thing with it. But then I asked him, I said, "What are you going to do if in 6 months half of these businesses are closing their doors because of the burden of this?" He goes, "Well, we'll probably leave it in place another year or two, and
until all the business are out of business."
Right. And the thing that should be so clear from that answer is 78% to 20%. He's the 20%. He's the 20% that doesn't get it over there. He's the 20%. Yeah, we'd leave it in place. Let just burn the place down. What do I care? This is who this person is, and this is who a lot of these people in local government are. They don't care. This is about money for them. That's what this is about to them. So I'm sure they do object to us, asking them questions and then having comments on our show about what their answers are that are critical.
Now, okay, so let me give you all a little inside knowledge about what's happening, because this is news analysis. Okay, so I go in this evening a little bit early. I get there, And I'm talking with one of the city councilors who prefer not to be quoted. Okay, but it's one of the people that talks to us. The police chief always talks to us. He always laughs and jokes with this. He just thinks what happened with Cheryl Walker and this thing about you got to keep the camera in your lap, and these are the rules, and they showed up and there weren't any rules, and they just basically said, look, we're not going to show up for this kind of stuff anymore. This is stupid. That's not a quote, but that's been the result. So Cheryl Walker can't just make up rules and call the police and stop a meeting in order to enforce rules that don't exist. These are the county commissioners we have. So I'm talking with this one, and whether this is accurate or not accurate, this is what he tells me is the consensus among the city councilors. One of the major reasons, not making this up, that this thing did not pass, this sales tax, is two people. Mike Jones, Dale Matthews.
What?
Because, yes, they got to blame somebody, Mike. They're certainly not going to blame themselves for being lunkheads.
No. Are you yanking my chain here?
No, I'm not yanking your chain. Let me tell you their perception, because they got to find a scapegoat. Okay, they got to find somebody to blame for this. Okay, now whether they all feel that way or not, this is what this guy told me. Okay, it's not hard to say guy because Lily isn't there anymore and there's no women there. Okay, so what he said is the perception among the city councilors is, and who knows who's spreading this, but I'll give you just 3 guesses and the first 2 don't count, that the reason why this, one of the major reasons, not the only reason, Chamber of Commerce didn't help, was that we did 2 things that really have damaged them, really damaged them. One was against Darren Fowler, who said, well, even if, half the businesses are going out of business, why, we'd still keep going.
Hey, listen.
This killed this guy.
We didn't put the words in his mouth. He said them himself. For crying out loud.
might argue with us about how it was highly edited, Mike. But yes, it makes him look like a fool. And why does it make him look like a fool? Because he said something that wasn't very smart.
Yeah, listen. You know what? I at the time, this is just a friendly banter interview. I'm just trying to get your flavor of what's going on with the sales tax, and he was very upfront about it. This guy was being honest about what he thought at that particular moment. So what you got there, don't blame it on me. Now
didn't you ask him a gotcha question, Mike Jones? Didn't you ask him something that was impossible to answer?
Listen, he didn't have to answer it in that way. He could have answered it any way he wanted to. But he said he's
going to have to blame somebody.
But when I said, and it's very, very clear on the video, that what are you going to do if this is going on as a result of this? And he said, well, we'll keep it going for another 2 years. Well, come on. I mean,
yes, he did.
The criticism of that writes itself. You don't have to. You don't have to have a brain. Just watch the thing. No, he's the 20%.
I believe that he's convinced that he's going to lose the election for mayor, and that one of the main reasons is the stupid thing that he said to you. And we there.
Yeah, it's it's a little skippy.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, Skippy. Okay. So, and the other thing is that we insisted on taking Mark Bartholomew, the city attorney, to court. Mm-hmm. And Mark Bartholomew, for reasons that are just unfathomable to me, confessed that the city can put something on or take something off without a vote of the people that is political. Roy Lindsay is already on record in front of an audience saying that he never said that Bartholomew never said it. That what's on tape, what's on the court transcript, what was there he was sitting in the room. And that Mark Bartholomew never. Yeah.
I mean, it's clear, and whether he was just mouthing off as a rogue agent there, or they've had this discussion in their behind closed doors executive sessions and talked about what they could do. I think it's clear that that's the case, and he's the city's attorney. I mean, they've obviously contemplated what you can and cannot do. So you know what? Listen, don't blame us for them saying it, for crying out loud, and don't blame us. Don't blame us for showing people what they said. I mean, listen, you should go be mad at those people. Say, what the hell did you do that for? You idiot. You're not supposed to be telling people our secrets. That's, I mean, don't look at us and say we're the bad guys. All we're doing is, but you can argue with us about our interpretation of what they said. But I think what Mr. Bartholomew said was pretty clear.
It was very clear. He was trying to make a point, and he had the judge already agreeing with him before the whole thing.
Of course.
So there's two things that happened today, and see if you find, okay, maybe it's just one of those cosmic coincidences, but see if you find any. So as I mentioned, any similarity between these two things. Every time I get up, in spite of their rules, Darren Fowler interrupts me. Now, I have asked him in the past, about a year ago, I always say something about the county, that's our expertise, not so much the city, more the county. Yes, we know what's happening in the city. And so one time about a year ago, Darren Fowler said, well, can you restrict your comments to what's happening in Grants Pass? And I said to him a year ago in public, you've never asked me to do that before. Well, I'm asking you this time, can you, talk about Grants Pass? And so I easily made a connection between Josephine County and Grants Pass. It was actually going to be about Grants Pass. I just didn't get there. So the next week, he came up to me personally while I was still waiting for the meeting to start and said, I'm not going to be doing that again. You just talk about what you want to. It's your time. And I said, oh, okay, good. Okay. So and that was the time when we first started, we changed the position of the camera so you can see better. This is a little inside baseball. You guys kind of like some of that. And so it was David Reeves says, you can't put that camera, blah, blah, blah. And the mayor said, oh, yeah, go ahead. It's not in anybody's way. It wasn't in anybody's way. And and Reeves, one of the remaining four horsemen of the apocalypse, in my editorial opinion, he came over. That was with Laurel Sampson and with David Frazier, who's been fired now, I think, for the fourth time by yet another city. That's what Rob Pell says, fourth time. So he called the police chief over. Well, the police chief just, as he often does, just kind of laughed. Well, it's not in anybody's way. Reeves did not look happy, but there we get at least a good video camera footage from our camera. And I was begged at the last meeting, please bring your camera back. And I have to admit that the video coming out of the city is pretty poor. Thanks again to David Reeves. We were getting great video. And then he said, well, you can't have that anymore. And so, well, why not? Well, you can't. I said, can we pay? No, you can't pay for it. It's not available at any price, blah, blah. So,
well,
okay,
and you know what a fantastic point to stitch onto the end of that is that if transparency is something that you truly care about, you offer up your transparency on a silver platter to your critics even.
Yes.
This is not something that you just, put up for people who, have nothing to say. You give it to your critics as well. And that is the mark of transparency.
It is indeed. So, if I get up and I talk mostly about here's what's happening in the county, and it's amazing to look at Rick Riker especially, because Rick Riker, one of the city councilors, always looks at me like, what? Because you can't read this stuff in the Courier. It's not going to be there. And so I tell him, well, this is what the commissioner said. They did? Well, I was leading to that point, but I started off because someone else had mentioned, a couple different people mentioned, and this was fine. They were talking about county politics, part of what they said. Nobody said a word. Of course they can talk about county politics at a city council meeting. It's our 3 minutes. So you got one person who got up, a little county politics, mostly city. Another got up, a little county politics, a little national stuff, a little city. Then I got up and I started talking about little county politics. Darren Fowler stopped me, as he's done every time for the last 6 times, something like that. And he said, I want you to restrict your comments to the city. And I stopped dead in my tracks. And I said, this is now a new policy, Mr. Mayor, that only I have to talk about the city? You've always let us talk about, well, you're using up your time. You've always let us talk about the county in the past, and now you've decided we can no longer do that. You're using up your time. I said, yeah, I know. I'm paraphrasing. We'll play back the tape as soon as I can get it into the computer and then out to you so you can see it and hear it clearly. So I just stopped and I challenged him about that. Not by calling him names like Keith Heck does, but just saying, why would you do that? You've always let us talk about what we want to talk about. Well, now you got to talk about the city. So I made a seamless transition, which I was going to do anyway, into what had happened with the city. And I talked a little bit about this question that Mike had about how the county commissioners, that's why I let it off this way, had been talking about the city and about testing the water. And why is it that the county, I think they're easy marks, but that's my editorial opinion. You take it from there, Mike. You know what you felt about the county and the city.
Yeah, I don't think this is interesting because I just got an email from people praising the county for taking on this task of testing the water. First of all, I don't understand outside of the Grants Pass Irrigation District what business it is of the county. This is a city thing. The city pumps this water out and feeds it to people for their ingestion. If they don't care about it, you got to wonder why. And it may well be that they already know why, and that there is some sort of a crony deal happening here for Eric Schaafsma and the Grants Pass Water Lab. I don't believe in this thing to begin with, but even less than that, do I think that the county of Josephine should be paying for that solely, when the greatest concern about the water should be Grants Pass cities alone. They have an infrastructure that they maintain. They treat this water for the purpose of human consumption, and they get paid for it. So who should care about this more than anybody? Grants Pass. And apparently they don't, or maybe they do, and this communication hasn't happened back and forth. Maybe they're not concerned about it because they're not getting any abnormal levels. And if you have any more to add to that, did they answer any of that today?
No. Here's what happened at the county commissioners meeting. Most of the city councilors look like they had never heard this, okay? Especially Rick Riker. He always looks surprised, but I don't know. Maybe it's something in his diet. Look, in 2 meetings, Cheryl Walker, okay, there you go. There's your clue, has said the city is simply, Grants Pass City is simply not interested in testing this. And then science credit, well, aren't they doing any testing? I mean, haven't they already laid down a baseline? Because they say, well, we need a baseline before we're hit by all these chemicals. And Simon says, well, haven't they done a baseline? And I have the same question. What, they've never done a baseline? This is impossible. Of course they've done a baseline. Let's not be stupid. They test things on a weekly basis, okay? So of course they have a baseline. So what's this sudden rush to sign a 1-year contract to get a baseline when you don't need the 1-year contract? You could, even if you wanted to do it yourself, you send someone out, go get the baseline, bring it back, and then when you've got the money, then you have your baseline. You haven't, and the reason you need to hurry up is because the rains are coming. The Beatles song, and so you want to be sure. So you do the testing for what, $200, or should be $1.95, and you've got that set aside, and then once you decide what to do further, then you have it sent off for you've got your sample before the rains start. If it's such an emergency, then just get the sample. Right. This is common sense. Okay. So, and then today the commissioners had an argument, mostly led by Simon Hare, saying, no, what's up with this? How come we're the only ones paying for this? Right. Well, maybe we'll get them to join in eventually. What's this eventually thing?
I mean, they're not going to do that. Somebody else is taking it up. Why would they?
The count. Do you remember Mark Von Holly, who came in and he wanted to charge everybody, every municipality, and when he added all up was going to be $1 million contract. He was going to charge everybody from the city of Medford and Jackson County and Josephine County and the city of Grants Pass and your aunt's best friend, and everybody was going to pay this guy $50,000. Nobody ended up doing this, but the reason they came, in my opinion, to Josephine County is they're easy marks. They were totally for it.
Yeah.
And the only thing they put on with saying, if you get it signed with Jackson, then we'll do it. Well, he never got it signed with Jackson, and then it turned out that was not the truth.
Yeah.
Mike?
Well, you know what? I've said this before, but I'll reiterate it now. I used to run a small public water system. It was like 20 homes. And every year I had to take samples and do testing for all kinds of heavy metals, benzene, all kinds of stuff. Literally. I mean, it costs like $5 or $6 grand every year to do this. But I don't understand why what they're doing now has to be any more expensive than that, because there's only a few elements there that are an issue, as they have already discovered are high in the water around where they took the dam out there. So why not just concentrate your testing to those elements and do 4 or 5 tests with that? It can't be any more than what I was spending to do this massive barrage, an array of testing on the drinking water that I was providing,
including testing not only the fish, but the wildlife in the area.
Yeah, that's
wildlife.
Bizarre. Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, now Simon pointed out the same thing that.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, and if I'm required to do all that as a private party who's running a small water system, what is Grants Pass? Water department. What is their charge? Aren't they supposed to? Yes, but no. But what I'm saying is what is their responsibility in terms of testing that water for safety purposes?
100%.
Right.
Look, as Simon pointed out in today's meeting, we only use this water for a couple of our parks. Now, before they said 1 park, now they're saying 2 parks. Okay, whatever. Okay, yeah. So we only use it for parks. Okay, and we've got a filtration system for that. All right, so why do we see this as a Josephine County health matter? Not saying it's not, it might be, but wouldn't you think the lead agency, if not the federal government, which it should be, would be, if they're not going to do it, it would be Grants Pass. Don't send us email. Well, everybody said we know it needs to be tested, or probably should be tested. Shouldn't Grants Pass be taking the lead? Well, they're not going to, because this is mostly an initiative pushed by Cheryl Walker, and this is her baby, and she wants to see Rosemary's baby. She wants to see that this thing is paid for entirely by Josephine County. And Simon says, well, where are the others? Well, maybe we'll get them to sign. Maybe we'll get them to sign on.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get over $100,000. Maybe no, wait. So I went to the city council and I said, so why are the county commissioners saying you don't care and you're not going to be part of this testing? And at least one of them, already told you who, said, look like, what? Why would they say that? That was my point. So to bring it a little bit home here, because we're trying to keep the show under an hour, the future has already begun. One is, Keith Eck would prefer that I not speak at all because I'm the one that brought forth the news. And he doesn't like the news being told to you. And number 2 is Darren Fowler, just simply by coincidence, is trying to also stop me from talking, even though others spoke about the county. I cannot speak about the county. I can only speak about the city. And it's one of these things where, do you see any similarity here? The idea is we're not going to change what we're doing. We're not going to learn a lesson from 80% votes on both sides. We're simply going to silence, shut up, squelch the messenger. And I'm asking you to do something. Oh no, Marge, he's asking us to do something. Yep. I'm asking you to call and leave a message for Keith Eck, telling him that you think it's wonderful what he's doing or it's dastardly what he's doing. And his phone number is 541-474-5221. Don't come next week because there won't be a meeting. Or Michael put up our email address, and you can send them an email saying anything that you want on this subject. It says badcounty dot.
No, that's
at cpros.com, cpros.com, and tell them what you think. It's now that now that we've got the city voters are awake and not voting in lockstep, and now that we have the county voters that are concerned about what's happening in the city, this is what I asked Rob Pell. What are you going to do with that energy? So I ask you, our audience, what are you going to do with the energy? Make any kind of phone call you want, cut the legs out from under us, whatever you want to do. You tell them what you think, and let's see if there's something that we can do to improve our community by giving the county government, maybe even the city government, a little bit of feedback from the real power around here. That's you.